Welcome, everyone. This is the last part of our session today for the study of, we are to be keeping the whole law and not just the Ten Commandments. So let me, my sister Shoshana's with me, my sister Sally, and my brother Dennis, and we are going to be finishing up this study here. It's the whole law is to be observed, not just the top 10. So my sister Shoshana, she'll be leading off this last part here with Isaiah chapter 66, verse 23.
Yep. Okay, again, I'm reading the Hallelujah Scriptures. Verse 23 says, "And it shall be that from new moon to new moon, and from Shabbat to Shabbat, and Sabbath to Sabbath, all flesh shall come to worship before me, declares Yahuwah."
And what's kind of interesting here is I always forget to include this on the study, to put the asterisk of the LXX next to this verse, because there's something that it's lacking a little bit in the Masoretic text in this verse. It actually says to worship me before me in Jerusalem.
In Jerusalem. I was wondering why I had that written down.
Yeah, so actually in the millennial context, future context, everyone is to be going up year to year. Most likely this is talking about the Gentiles. They would not be living in Jerusalem. So you got the other nations that have not yet came into or have been grafted in spiritually to the Father, and this would be talking about them most likely, because obviously the believers, the body of Messiah, and the set apart ones, they would all be in Jerusalem at this point in time. So I think it's talking about come worship before me in Jerusalem. It's probably talking about the rest of the clans of the earth joining themselves to Yahuwah.
And let's look at verse 24, because this is what they're going to see when they come up to Jerusalem. "They shall go forth and look upon the corpses of the men who have transgressed against me," says Yahuwah. "For their worm shall not die, and their fire not be quenched, and they shall be repulsive to all flesh."
That could be talking about the ones that came against Jerusalem, possibly.
This is a deterrent for sure, not to transgress his law, and I believe that's what he's going to do is keep the corpses there for their admonishment, so they can know that he's serious. He's not giving you suggestions. He's giving you absolute commandments that you must do. And it's not for him, it's for your good. That's the whole thing that goes by a lot of people. They're taught for our good. If we live by them, all people will be in the best health, and they will prosper, live long and prosper, as Yahuwah can say. Anyway, you will live long and prosper and be sent baraka. That's all I'm going to say about keeping the law. And Doug, do you have the next one, or do I?
I have the next one. It's going to actually correlate timeline-wise perfectly with what Shoshana just read in Isaiah 66. This is Zechariah chapter 14. In my opinion, this is the exact same timeline as Isaiah 66, in my opinion. And it's talking about the coming of the day of Yahuwah, basically talking about those that have basically survived of the people that came up against Jerusalem will be commanded to worship Yahuwah in Jerusalem. So let's see here. We got Zechariah chapter 14, and we're going to start at verse 16 here. It says, and it shall come to pass, future here, that whosoever shall be left of all the nations that came up against Jerusalem shall even come up every year to worship the King, Yahuwah Almighty, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, this is definitely not found in the 2 tablets of stone. So this is part of the other commandments that are in the book of the law that was included in the Ark of the Covenant that we talk about in part 1. Okay? And it shall come to pass, future, again, shall, that whosoever of all the families of the earth shall not come up to Jerusalem to worship the King, Yahuwah Almighty, even these shall be added to the others. So if we connect this with what Shoshana read in Isaiah 66, 23 to 24, if you do not come up to keep his new moons and Sabbaths, all the Gentiles that have not been in covenant with him that have to come up to Jerusalem every year, and if you don't come up to Jerusalem, those that are left over from that battle that came up against Jerusalem, if you don't come up and keep the Feast of Tabernacles, in both cases, you will be destroyed. And not just what the Masoretic text likes to say, no rain. Okay? You hear that it's a lot worse in the Septuagint. Here it says, even these shall be added to the others. What does that mean? Well, the others that were destroyed in that battle.
The ones they see and laying on the ground, the corpses.
Yeah. And if the family of Egypt, and this is more context here, verse 18, shall not go up nor come, then upon them shall be the overthrow with which Yahuwah shall smite all the nations, whichever of them shall not come up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. So this is, hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the Almighty here ain't giving you much of a choice. So you're left over, he gives you, well, he does give you a choice, but the other choice kind of sucks. You're going to die. So he's giving you a choice, but it's kind of like, this kind of reminds me of the book of Jeremiah, where he's allowing them to live in Babylon for 70 years, but they have to be punished and be put under Nebuchadnezzar. And he says the only other option is if you flee on your own to Egypt, you're going to die. So that's kind of like a similar ultimatum that he gave the people in the 70-year captivity. He's like, all right, you can live, you can have life. The Baraka.
Let me tell you this, though. Absolutely, I want to say the Feast of Tabernacles, or as we've learned to call it, Sukkot, is a wonderful time. It's a gathering of Yahuwah's people in places around the world that he chooses, and we rejoice. It's a rejoicing time. It's a feast. Who doesn't love to rejoice and go to a feast?
Yeah, and I think this is really a test to see who actually loves the Father. And I'm mainly pointing at people that claim to believe in the Bible, claim to love the Messiah and love the Father. This is going to be a test in the millennial. Are you gonna want to keep the feast and want to do what he tells you to do, or are you gonna want to hang on to your Saturnalia and all that, or are you gonna want to go with Satan? Because there is going to be a test. Because basically you have the millennial, you have Satan's loosed up for 1,000 years. And then, so if people don't want to keep the Feast of Tabernacles and all of that, they're either going to die or they're going to end up rebelling with Satan after 1,000 years. So this is really a test for a lot of people out there say, yeah, we love the Father, we love the Son. Well, this is a way to prove it, to keep the Feast of Tabernacles, to keep these commandments. This is a way to prove your love. Yeah, he's going to give.
They're not burdensome. They're not grievous. They're wonderful.
Yep. Yeah, the feasts are probably the most enjoyable part probably of the law.
Absolutely.
To say the least, they're definitely not the hard part of the law. I can tell you that. There are certain commandments that are hard with, especially with the dietary instructions. Sometimes it's hard, especially with the meat and stuff like that. So that's more of a difficult part. Just speaking from my experience, that giving up certain foods was definitely a hard part for me. The feast days, I never
had any trouble with that.
yeah. But anyway, yeah, the feasts are definitely the least difficult part of the law, in my opinion. So, Sister Sally, if you could possibly read Hosea chapter 4, verse 6 here.
Sure.
Yeah.
My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because you have rejected knowledge. I also will reject you from being priest for me, because you have forgotten the law of your Elohim. I also will forget your children.
So, again, you have forgotten the law of your Elohim. So in the context, this was happening when his people knew the Torah. They forgot it. They didn't want to keep it anymore. And they started going after strange mighty ones, as we read before in Yahushua chapter 24, 14 to 15. You had them reverting back to their forefathers' ways. And this is why Yahuwah's uttering this, is that, well, you forgot my law. You will not be priests for me. And I will also forget your children, since you forgot my law. So
here we are today.
now this has carried over to modern times now. Mostly with Christianity, this is kind of interloped into Christianity from the original Yashrulites. This has kind of been a curse now on Christianity, where many people in Christian churches don't keep his law for the most part, and have been taught that they don't have to keep his law. So I think Christians should definitely pay attention to this verse here. This is very key. I mean, even not for your own sake, for the sake of your children. I mean, he's actually punishing their children for the fact that their parents have forgot his law. I mean, it literally says, because you have forgotten my law, I will also forget your children. I mean, this is harsh. You should really be thinking about it like, do it for the sake of your children, not for yourself. That's all I can say about that.
May I read the rest of the chapter? There's not much left, and it ties in so well, of course. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because you have rejected knowledge. I also will reject you from being priest for me, because you have forgotten the law of your Elohim Yahuwah. I also will forget your children. The more they increased, the more they sinned against me. I will change their splendor into shame. They eat up the sin of my people. They set their heart on their iniquity, and it shall be like people, like priests. So I will punish them for their ways and reward them for their deeds. For they shall eat, but not have enough. They shall commit harlotry, but not increase, because they have ceased obeying Yahuwah. Harlotry, wine, and new wine enslave the heart. You want me to keep going, or does that cover it pretty well?
Yeah, that's actually some great added context there, actually, yeah. So as you see here, he gave them a spirit of, he gave them into a reprobate mind in a demon, actually, of gluttony, in a way. It says they will eat and not be satisfied. So Yahuwah can send demons. It's something that's really not, that I was never taught, being raised in the church, but you'll see in the Tanakh, Yahuwah can send any type of spirit. He can send tube spirit
and evil.
I think there's one spirit in the book of Samuel, where 1 Samuel, where he sends an evil spirit to afflict Saul.
Saul, yeah.
Yeah, so he actually sends a demon. So I mean, the demons are actually under him, not Satan. I know that might mess with a lot of people's theologies, but that whole idea, Satan's the king of the demons, that's Greek mythology. He doesn't really have control over the demons. I mean, yeah, the demons somewhat work for him because they're on his side, but they're not. He doesn't really have control over the demons.
The demons are Yahuwah's.
Yeah, Yahuwah's can serve. He has the demons that serve him, because pretty much Yahuwah is the Almighty. The demons pretty much they might not want to, but they're going to have to bow before the sun. It says that everything even under the earth will
remember bow. There's a difference between the fallen Malachim and the demons, because fallen Malachim, they were angels, now they're fallen angels, but demons are the spirits of the Nephilim that were on the earth. And so they're just spirits wandering around. Oh, what should I do? And Yahuwah tells them what to do.
Yeah, they're unclean spirits that try to possess people. They're like parasites.
They are parasites.
They're literally parasites. Like to compare them to modern day, it would be like the Venom of Spider-Man. That's what a demon is. It's a symbiote parasite that needs a host.
Oh, it's like on the Stargate.
Yeah, Stargate SG-1 has symbiote. The Venom probably is the most biblical one because it's like black goo. It's like antimatter. So that probably be with the most realistic type of.
That thing's a snake that crawls in there. Spine and it rules over the body. They're called a Goa'uld. Gould. Short.
All right. So, Shoshana, if you could possibly read Genesis 9, verse 22.
Yes, I can. Genesis 9, verse 22. Again from the Holy Scriptures. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brothers outside. Let me continue.
That's pretty much it. I just wanted to include this in our study because this shows that Ham did something which goes against the Torah before the Torah was even given. This is what's known as uncovering your dad's nakedness. Now, the way the translations translate it, they make you think, oh, it's just he unlifted the covers of his dad when he was passed out drunk. That's how Christianity usually will interpret it. But actually, if you look in the Torah,
probably laughed at him or whatever.
Yeah, that's what they'll say. He laughed at the fact that his dad got drunk, and he showed his brothers that his dad was passed out drunk naked. That's how they'll interpret it. In actuality, in the Torah, when you see someone's nakedness, that's an idiom or a phrase referring to uncovering their nakedness, meaning he slept with his own mom. Now, why would this happen? Well, you got to read the Book of Enoch and the extra biblical books to kind of get a good idea of why he would do that. I think in his reasoning, it would be, well, I don't have a human wife. He probably didn't want to sleep with the wife he had. That was a Nephilim, or that was corrupted. Because it says that all flesh was corrupted in Genesis 7, I believe. So before the flood, everyone was corrupted but Noah, his 3 sons, and Noah's wife. That means the wives of Noah's sons were not human 100%, meaning that their wives were either half-breeds or completely female Nephilim. So most likely Ham thought to himself, well, I kind of have no other choice here but to uncover my dad's nakedness, because if I go into my wife, we possibly might have a giant. So he's kind of probably reasoning in himself that it's worth the risk of sinning. And I'm not trying to, say it's okay to do this. I'm just saying that's probably what his reasoning was, just hypothetically. He, according to the wives that the 3 sons had, and probably he didn't want to go into the wife he had, most likely. But either way, he sinned by uncovering his dad's nakedness, and he gets cursed later on in this chapter.
His son gets cursed.
And actually, his son gets cursed. So this is kind of the old phrase that I always knew as a child, known as the sins of the father carry on to the son. And it's kind of like an old phrase that I remember from my upbringing, that there is a biblical idea to a son getting cursed for his parents' sins. Not that he's going to be put to death for his parents' sins, but that kind of there's like genetic curses. There's like you get cursed because of what your parents did. So there's like a generational curse because of the sins of your dad or the sins of your mom. And unfortunately, this turned most of his descendants into giants because of this. And unfortunately, because of his disobedience, his lineage becomes practically 100% Nephilim. When you start reading the book of Numbers and all that, it talks about the Canaanites, the Girgashites, the Jebusites. All of these come from Canaan. Numbers 13 says. So
but not 100%. I think there's enough that came from his lineage that can be salvaged. But that there was enough.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think I said like close to 100%. There's probably like a small remnant that probably were 100% human. I don't know how much of them were human, because the majority of them that are mentioned in the Old Testament that come from Canaan end up being giants. So I would have to study that for myself. I really don't know.
That's a study. That's another study for another day.
That's a pretty big topic that goes into like Numbers, Amos, and a lot of other places that talks about his descendants. But anyway, so I'm going to read 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 22 to 24 here. Okay, it says, and this is another commandment from Yahuwah, from Yahusha, given to Paul. Paul's being a vessel for Yahusha to give us a commandment in the New Testament, which is not stated in the tablets of stone. Just keep that in mind, what I'm about to read. This was not mentioned at all ever in the Old Testament or in the tablets of stone. It says, let's see here, 1 Thessalonians 5:22 to 24. Okay, so it says here, abstain from all appearance of evil. Nowhere will you find that in the Tanakh. So this is almost like a new commandment from Yahusha. Basically, Yahusha is using Paul to give us a commandment to abstain from the appearance or every form of evil. Basically, if something looks sinful, don't even do it. Even if it might seem sinful, don't even do it. And it says, the very Elohim of peace separate you wholly, so that your whole spirit and being and body be preserved, blameless unto the coming of our Master, Yahusha, the Messiah. Trustworthy is he that called you, who also will do it. So basically, it's saying that the Father will present you blameless as long as you're, doing what the Father says. Present you as like a spotless bride to Yahusha. That's basically what Paul's getting at. And basically, the reason I brought this up, verse 22 says, abstain from all appearance of evil. So, see here, Sister Shoshana, you have Leviticus chapter 18, verse 23.
Yeah, and I think I should really read a lot more than that, because it tells you who you cannot uncover the nakedness of. I'm going to start with verse 6, actually. Verse 5, and you shall guard my laws and my right rulings, which a man does and lives by them. I am Yahuwah. No one is to approach any one of his own flesh to uncover his nakedness. I am Yahuwah. The nakedness of your father or the nakedness of your mother you do not uncover. She is your mother. You do not uncover her nakedness. The nakedness of your father's wife you do not uncover. It is your father's nakedness. And this is where we get that Ham was uncovering his father's wife, his mother.
Mm-hmm.
The nakedness of your sister, the daughter of your father or the daughter of your mother, whether born at home or elsewhere, their nakedness you do not uncover. The nakedness of your son's daughter or of your daughter's daughter, their nakedness you do not uncover. For theirs is your own nakedness. The nakedness of your daughter's or your father's wife's daughter, brought forth by your father. She is your sister. You do not uncover her nakedness. The nakedness of your father's sister you do not uncover. She is your father's flesh. The nakedness of your mother's sister you do not uncover, for she is your mother's flesh. The nakedness of your father's brother you do not uncover. You do not approach his wife. She is your aunt. The nakedness of your daughter-in-law you do not uncover. She is your son's wife. You do not uncover their nakedness. The nakedness of your brother's wife you do not uncover. It is your brother's nakedness. The nakedness of a woman and her daughter you do not uncover, nor do you take her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter to uncover her nakedness. For they are her relatives. It is wickedness. And do not take a woman as a rival to her sister to uncover their nakedness while the other is still alive. And do not approach a woman to uncover her nakedness in her monthly separation of uncleanness. And do not have intercourse with the wife of your neighbor to defile yourself with her. And do not give any of your offspring to pass through Molech. Do not profane the name of Yahuwah. I am Yahuwah. So it's the fire of Molech. In other words, they were actually burning their children to Molech, an evil, mighty one that is just a statue holding a burning pan. And they were burned, boiled in oil probably, little babies. Terrible. Do not give any of your offspring to pass through the fire to Molech. This profanes the name of Yahweh. And do not lie with a male as with a woman. It is an abomination. This is referring to homosexuality being an abomination. And nobody's allowed to preach that, from what I understand. It's right here in Scripture. Do not have intercourse with any beast to defile yourself with it. And a woman does not stand before a beast to mate with it, for it is a perversion. Do not defile yourselves with all of these, for by all these the nations are defiled, which I am driving out before you. And most of them, I am afraid, is being done today somewhere, unfortunately.
The only thing that is missing is the last one you spoke of, which is bestiality. That's the only thing missing. And I heard that supposedly Canada already passed it, so it's probably going to be coming here soon.
Yeah. Bestiality. Do not have sex with any animal to defile yourself with it. You're defiling the animal. A poor innocent animal doesn't want you. He wants his own kind. And you're trying to defile that creature, because if you're caught with him, you and the animal are both put to death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is the law.
Yeah, and for all these parents out there that took your children to see Beauty and the Beast recently, a couple of years ago, that new Beauty and the Beast, you don't realize it, but you're indoctrinating your children to accept that. You're indoctrinating them to accept a beast and a woman being in love. Because that's what that movie's about. That's exactly what it's about. People have said to me, I've had relatives try to defend Walt Disney and say, oh, no, it's about a friendship and yada, yada, yada. No, it's not, okay? She kisses the beast, okay? It's promoting bestiality. I'm sorry to burst anyone's bubbles that loves Disney. Walt Disney was a sick Freemason, okay? Very sick, okay? So I would, especially believers out there that have children, you need to get rid of all your Disney movies. There's nothing but perversion in those movies that you wouldn't even realize. Even in movies like The Lion King and movies like The Little Mermaid, okay? That's another movie promoting abomination, The Little Mermaid. They're promoting sirens. Well, I mean, I could go on and on about that, but I just wanted to bring that about since we were on the topic of bestiality there. It's very evil. They're trying to brainwash children and accepting it. So here, I think Sister Sally is next. Leviticus chapter 20, verse 13. Sister Sally, let me unmute you. Here you go. There.
Yes, verse 13. If a man lies with a male, as he lies with a woman, both of them have committed an abomination. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood shall be upon them. Want me to keep going?
I think that's enough. That gives the context
I think I covered it all.
Yes,
Yeah, Shoshana, I think she read through the whole chapter. I didn't realize
It's different chapters, but it's saying the same thing.
Yeah, he's reiterating the Father's.
I'd like to add verse 29 of chapter 18. For whoever does any of these abominations, those beings who do them shall be cut off from among their people. And to be cut off is to be killed.
Yeah. Especially around that time when they actually had a right ruling system in the land. The context of definitely when this commandment was given was to cut off from among their people. So people would say, how is that handled today? Well, at the minimum, you're cut off from the assembly. If we're going to try to make this applicable today, like this commandment, like some Christian might walk up to us and be like, okay, what about this? What about, execution and all that? I'd be like, well, obviously we don't have a system to really fully keep it that way. We would have to, I would say, keep this commandment in a way that someone would have to get kicked out of the assembly if they're doing these things and they're practicing these things and they don't want to repent. That's the only thing I could think of. We can't really stone anyone right now. There's no, there's no legal system for Yahuwah's kingdom yet. We're not in the millennial yet, so we can't really, unless you want to count the cost and get arrested. I mean, because that would be murder in our judicial system. That'd be considered murder, just killing someone for doing that. Because all the things that we've spoken about, unfortunately, in this wicked country is legal. Most of them are legal. So if we kill someone for doing any of these things, we would get locked up. And we would be in prison probably for life.
But
so that's why
forget that Yahuwah keeps track of all your sins, all of your abominations, and it will not go unlooked at.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, that was a great one to include. So that was verse 29 of Leviticus 18.
Yeah.
So being cut off from your people, the original definition of that, when there was a right ruling system in Yashrael under Masha and under Yahuwah, the Almighty, our Heavenly Father, when he actually had his people in the land there, and they actually had a somewhat of a system of rightly ruling, they would, physically cut off the person, not just kicking them out of the congregation. So here we go. We're up to 1 Corinthians 6:10, and these are, I'm going to be reading from 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 10, and these are sins that will keep you out of the kingdom and will actually put you in the lake of fire. And these are not mentioned in the 2 tablets of stone of the 10 Commandments. So again, these are other things. Well, some of these are actually mentioned, but there's a couple that are not. And you'll see what I'm talking about. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 10 says, nor thieves, nor covetous, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor extortioners shall inherit the kingdom of Yahuwah. Okay, so the thieves, covetous are mentioned in the tablets. Drunkards are not. Revilers are not. Extortioners, technically, because that's a form of stealing, but it's kind of different. So anyone that practices these things, Paul is saying, will not inherit the kingdom. So, pretty self-explanatory there. And then I also have here Proverbs chapter 4, verse 2 from the Septuagint here I'll be reading from. And see here, we got Proverbs chapter 4, verse 2. For I give you tube doctrine. And actually, I like how the Septuagint says it. It says, for I give you a tube gift. Forsake ye not my law. So it's not just doctrine, it's a gift. So Yahuwah considers his law as a gift to his people, not just doctrine, not just learning. It is a gift. So you should really consider that when people are trying to convince you that his law is a curse or you're under bondage. That's a bunch of nonsense. Okay, so Yahuwah himself is saying that his law, his Torah, is a gift in the Septuagint. And let's see here. Wow, I can't believe we're running out of time again. All right.
I got one to read.
Yeah. Let's see. We could try to fit Jacob chapter 2, verse 10 here.
Jacob 2:10. And I will read that right now. For whoever shall guard all the Torah and yet stumble in one point, he is guilty of all. There it is. So you better read this book, all of it. You better read the Torah, especially. That's the first 5 books, the books of Moses.
Yep. And so
which was that verse?
That was it's actually named the Book of James. So James. Yeah, unfortunately they don't name it correctly. It's supposed to be Jacob 2:10. Yeah. The King James would have it as the Book of James, chapter 2, verse 10, but that's a whole another story why they mistranslated Jacob for James. That's a whole other story for a whole other topic. But yeah, we're going to try to come back on, everyone. Sorry, viewers or listeners, for this long study today, but there were so many cross references coming up from all these different parts of the law. So we will be definitely finishing it up in this part B of it will be the part 3B. So this was the first part 3. And we will definitely be finishing it up right now. So stay tuned. We'll be coming back on right now.